I have a quick...
Well, everything's possible. For us, we don't look at it like that because we think abductions are handled in family lines, and which means that, at least your mother or your father was an abductee, if not both. But you never really know, and most of the siblings would be as well. So we think that the family violence actually stems from that because there's so much stress and so much tension in the house because people are being picked up, not just one, but more than one.
I think that that's true, too, because I have often suspected in the ensuing years that my dad was an abductee.
Well, and it makes it hard because, as a parent and a contactee, you realize they're taking your children, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it really, really makes for some strong, hardcore emotional feelings that no telling how they're going to manifest or even where they're going to manifest for that moment. So, I always find that a touch scary and a touch strange, but it's one of the things that we all got to deal with. Now, I know you were in the military. What branch were you in?
I was in the Air Force.
Okay. Oh, one of them Airedale people. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I was in the Navy. I was just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, 1979 to 1983.
Well, we were in this. We must be close to the same age. I'm not going to say how old I am, but we really. I'm thinking. Yeah, around the same time. I graduated in 79, went in the Navy. Yeah, that's right around the same time. No, I'm not telling you how old I am. If you don't know by now, shame on y'all listen. Besides, it's impolite to ask a woman her age, especially live on air. Anyway, moving on. But, it is strange because I have, in the last few years, since I've really become more active in this, in a radio type way, in a press type way, I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of contactees in our age group, which is a very interesting group. They're very enlightened people in general. Sometimes they're a little too enlightened, but really and truly they are. Most of them are very enlightened people, and they have a very unique way of looking at the planet, the universe, and people in general. Some of them, I think, swing a little too far, and some of them swing a little too far the other way, but most of them find a happy medium ground to walk and just kind of get a balance going on there.
Yeah.
Now, I know you got friends and family, and so I mean, I'm sure that's part of your balance. And I know you were talking about breathing exercise and stuff, but what is it that gives you that allows you to deal with this every day? And if it's something personal, just tell me. But I mean, if it's something, I'm just curious because I try to find it's never the same thing with every person, but sometimes there's similarities.
Well, I think that there's different things going on with me. I think that I'm a contactee. I think that I have. This is just a feeling, but it's a very strong feeling that I go in the astral body to some mothership someplace, and I attend what I call Cosmic University.
Well, that's not the first time I've heard quite explained that way, but it's
so that's the contactee part of my experience, and then I meet people on the ground, at different events. Victoria Lillenquist is actually one that I've met. We took one look at each other when we met the first time on Earth, and thought, my God, I know you. And she looked at me and she says, I've been dreaming about you, and we've been really close, like star sisters ever since. And then there have been other people that come into my life like that, and I know we haven't met on the planet. We must have met out there. So that's the contactee part of my life. Then there was abductions with the Zeta Reticulans, and that's a whole different thing. More of an abduction than a contact. But even in that scenario, I got to the point where I felt like I was really cooperating them with their project, which I believe is to create a hybrid race. And
well, that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
They seem the Greys seem to be quite a bit into quite a few things that kind of worries me. But for us, we have to keep track of more than one race. And what's funny about this is somebody asked me just this the other day in an interview if I thought that the Greys were the most being abducted, or the reptilians, or the humans, or the light beings, or something along those lines. And right now, I'd say it was pretty even. I'd say you seem to have about a third, or maybe 28% each, and then you've got some rogue cases out there like Whitley Strieber's and not Whitley Strieber's, but Travis Walton's and a few others like that, which seem to be one-time abductions, wrong place, right time, right place, wrong time, however you want to look at that. But they seem to have those, and the Greys seem to be a little bit tougher. on a lot of the stuff they do. All three of them are running some type of hybrid program.
Right.
What exactly it's for is anybody's best guess. We know through some recent experiments lately that they're doing these programs. We couldn't. And I've talked about this before, but we couldn't figure out why UFOs were being seen over mortuaries and graveyards and stuff. Yeah. For the longest, we just didn't understand what they were there for. Yeah. And we actually had a group of contactees start asking what were they doing there. And what they said they're doing is they're actually taking the consciousness of the person that's passing and actually overlaying it on a new body, on a husk body or a host body. That's slightly different than the one you have now, but it's still basically the same body, but it's a slightly different body. I think it's designed to live in a different G environment. But they say that's what they're actually doing there. And a lot of them seem to think that's what the hybrids are, or these new bodies. But until E.T. comes and says, "Hey Joe, hey Niara, this is what we're doing," it's speculation. But the Greys are weird. Now, first contact, or let me rephrase it: primary contact. Because I heard you talking about the Greys, but what do you think is primary contact?
I think the primary contact has always been the more human-looking extraterrestrials.
Ooh, sorry to hear that.
And I don't think it's been bad. I think it's been very good. But then the other part of my experiences are MILAB-type experiences while in the Air Force, if you can call it a military abduction if you signed up to be in the Air Force. But those were terrifying. It's one thing to be with a non-human-looking humanoid and experience things there that are uncomfortable, but not brutal.
Yeah.
But then to be really brutalized by human beings of your own planet, of which you are one, that's the worst.
It does make it tough. I mean, the MILAB thing makes it's a tough thing, and it's interesting you brought that up because Melinda Leslie and I have been working on military abductees. Not so much MILABs. Not for me, a MILAB is an abductee that was abducted by some branch of the government or the military. But there's a whole separate sect that seems to be people that were in the military that were being abducted while they were in the military.
Yeah.
And they get coined as MILABs because technically they are, but it's kind of a separate subsect because they're actually in the military when they're being abducted versus the other people are not in the military, like Melinda Leslie or Lydia Haley or Katarina Wilson or any of them. They're having military abductions, but none of them are in the military. They're contactees that have come forward that the government or whatever has taken advantage of. Your case, it's different because you were actually in the service now.
Right.
Well, that means you were in your 20s.
Yeah, I was in my mid-20s when I went in, a little later than high school. And I first had the hypnosis. Well, a friend of mine was talking to me and noticed, some discrepancies. He said, you're really a sharp person, Niara, and you really, have a lot on the ball mentally. But then he said when he noticed that when I would talk about a particular time period, that there were a lot of gaps in my conversation. So he sat down and he said, I want you to tell me about your military time from beginning to end. Just go through it chronologically. And so I did. Lackland Air Force Base in Texas for boot camp, Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi for technical training. And then my first duty station was Nellis Air Force Base in North Las Vegas, Nevada. And I said I worked at Tonopah Electronic Warfare Range, went up to the range every other week. And then I stopped talking because I realized I couldn't remember any details. Not one. I couldn't remember people I worked with. I couldn't remember the name of the motel I stayed at every other week. I couldn't remember any details. And with this realization came a wave of nausea. And this was 1994, and then later that year in 1994, I went to the Whole Life Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada, I think October 1994, and I ran into Bud Hopkins there and attended his lecture, raised my hand at the end. I said, okay, I've got this strangeness going on from childhood and this strangeness here, and 3 months of missing time from when I was in the Air Force. And he said, talk to me afterwards. And so I did, and we did a hypnosis session that evening. And it turned my life upside down.
Well, I can imagine it did. I can't see how, your first hypnosis session is not going to.
I was kind of expecting the little gray guys with big eyes, but I was not expecting the brutality that I experienced at the hands of my own people out on the Nevada test site. And I had never heard of anything like that. Never heard of it. Never heard anything about MILABs, never heard anything about any of that. So when it came out, it just completely turned my life upside down.
It's been a very well-kept secret in ufology.
Yeah.
Ufology considers the MILAB thing and experiences to be an outside, a fringe element.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you can be a fringe element of ufology, but and I've been told this by several big-name ufologists. Yeah. They consider the experiences movement to be a fringe movement. Mm-hmm. And now more and more I'm going to have to deal with it now because there's such a big group of us now involved in the field, and there's so many of us working in the field now and speaking that they can't just ignore us. But, I had talked with Randy Copain and Melinda Leslie about Helmut Lambert's book, and then we talked about their book. And then when I talked to Leah Haley and Katarina Wilson about their MILAB experience, which is interesting because they all had military experiences in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is not far from Keesler Air Force Base. Yeah. Probably an hour, 45 minutes or something. And but they all had experiences down there in that area. And we've got reports of MILABs all along the Gulf Coast. Yeah. But you know what? I've never had anybody tell me they were taking the Keesler. I've had people tell me they were taking the Eglin, which is another Air Force base, but it's the one in Gulf Breeze.
Well, my experiences happened out on the Nevada test.
Yeah, and you were in a whole different part of the country, which in Nevada's not unheard of, and then right there in the southern part of California, I've heard quite a bit of military abduction stuff going on. But these seem to be areas where they've already established big military bases, so it must be easier to establish big underground bases.
Right.
Because Eglin is 884 square miles. It tests everything the military has except for nuclear weapons. The one where Boeing has its base at is actually twice that size, and probably the one in Nevada is probably around the same size. Mm-hmm. So these are already huge bases that are probably easy to bring people to, and unobstructed. Now you didn't. How can I word this? Let me backtrack on you a little bit. Yeah. You're in the military. Yeah. You're going through your normal day. Whatever your specialty was in the service. You're going through. You're doing your job, and you get off work or you're at work. Did you have any feelings like something happened you didn't know about, something seemed to be amiss, any bruises, any marks? Because I know you've experienced a MILAB thing, so when you woke up or that morning, that night, bad mood, really angry, any things like that? I mean, any of those? Well,
the whole 3-month time period was really kind of a blank, and Bud Hopkins asked me some questions about that time period because I had actually met my second husband during that time period, and we were dating. And he said it's really strange that you wouldn't remember something like meeting a romantic partner and going through that. And I've worked, and I do have a few little memories that came back. But if I had bruises or anything, the whole 3-month time period is really pretty much
a wash.
Gone. Yeah. And so if I had bruises, I didn't remember. If there were things going on, I don't know. I just didn't remember. It was really very strange. And then when I did get at least a little bit of memory back from the hypnosis, like I said, it just left me reeling in shock. It's like, well, the United States of America I grew up learning about in grade school and high school, it doesn't exist. There's this other thing going on. And I was, what happened to me was bad enough. Yeah. But the fact that it could happen was even worse in the United States of America. The fact that something like this could even happen.
Yeah, and go unchallenged by anybody. Yeah.
And you asked me earlier, what are the spiritual resources, or, what's the thing that gets me through each day? Well, for many years I was really, really scared. So it's like being caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. On one hand, you're afraid to talk because somebody went to a lot of time and trouble and at great personal expense to you, personally, to wipe your memory. Okay, and they don't want you talking. And now that you're remembered and you may start to talk, you're looking over your shoulder all the time wondering, my God, somebody can come after me. And then on the other side, you try to talk to your friends and family about this kind of a thing, and it's so far outside their normal everyday reality that they can't even grasp it. They ask you, oh, you must be mistaken. Are you sure?
Yeah, what kind of drugs are you on
Are you,
today?
and they push it away. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to hear it. So you're just stuck. You are stuck, and there's no way that you can work on it. There's almost no place you can go. And I lived that way for 10 years after my first hypnosis session.
And that, what you just said, is one of the reasons that this organization I work for was founded. Mm-hmm. Because there needed to be a place for contactees and abductees to be able to talk.
Yeah.
And say, hey, because not all contacts are the same, and a lot of contacts, there's a big missing pieces. We know that contact actually starts pre-birth. Mm-hmm. So they abduct your mother, whether she's a contactee or not, because if your dad was that, because sometimes in families it's both parents, sometimes it's not. And there's no real number on how many is what and what, but even if the mother's not a contactee, if they're carrying the child of a contactee, they're going to be abducted so they can check on the child. Mm-hmm. So the child's actually abducted before birth. All the contactees, or not all of them, but 90% of them have invisible friends or friends that used to talk to them when they were kids and stuff like that nobody else could see. Yeah. Now, it's not an exclusive contactee thing by any means, but there does seem to be a lot of them that have had that happen. And then from puberty, and it doesn't matter what race is abducting you, from puberty to about age 30, that's when they do all the really nasty experiments, all the experiments dealing with breeding and stuff. And in 99% of all cases, that is a complete wash. Nobody remembers that. You actually have to get into deep hypnosis to recover those memories. Yeah. And I ask all contactees the same thing. Why do you want to know? If you know you're a contactee and you're dealing with what's going on, especially if you're older, over 30 or older, and you're dealing with this, why do you want to know what happened in your 20s? Because I can tell you now, it wasn't a pleasant experience. It's not going to do anything good to remember, and more than likely, it's just going to make you mad. Yeah. But we do offer the option. I'm not going to ever tell anybody I wouldn't help them with recovering. I'm just saying, well, you don't have to.
Yeah, well, I got a social work degree, and I have a body-centered life coaching certification, and a few other things. And I'm really hoping that I can use my training to help people as well recover from this kind of thing and offer them some support, because it's just like a lost group of people, and they don't deserve that. They deserve to live happy, rich, full lives.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if y'all are calling on the 800 number, I'm actually on it right now. So y'all wait till I tell you y'all can call in, because I'm actually chatting on it, and I see it clicking, or I hear it clicking in my ear, actually. Mm-hmm. Now, let's see, somebody wanted to know who wrote this. Our Wisconsin State Director wrote into this, and he said, how did the military handle her missing time segments? Any repercussions? I guess he wanted, well, no, if the military had you, they would have taken care of that so nobody would have missed you. Mm-hmm. I think. I could be wrong, but that would actually make sense to me that I wonder if you could...
I've puzzled over that myself, and I have a few ideas.
Well, more than likely, I don't know if you could check now because it's been a while, but maybe at the time you might have been able to check your record to see if you were on leave. They might have gave you 90 days leave or hardship leave or HARP duty or something like that when they, something that would free you off the base, but no one would really be missing you at the time.
Well, I can tell you one way right off the top. When you work at Tonopah or Talitha Peak Electronic Warfare Range, you're up there a week at a time. And then you're a week back down in Las Vegas, or at least back when we were working it way back when. And so you're away from Las Vegas, Nevada, and the base for a week at a time. Of course, you have co-workers up there and whatever. But you're up there, they could pull you off for a particular detail and just tell your superiors at your regular radar site that you're off here or off there. So they really have quite a lot of control of the personnel.
No, I imagine they would, especially if you're doing duties like that. It's going to be much easier to take you out of. Well, it's like with Charles Hall up there, Area 53. He's out in the desert for, hours and days at a time, so nobody would have missed him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if they said that he was pulled off or sent someone, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to check, especially if it's somebody with, a decent clearance or a decent rank. Nobody's even going to question it. Mm-hmm. Captain or above, nobody's going to question what's going on there. They're just going to say, oh, yes, sir, and that's going to be the end of that, and there's not going to be any other questions. Now, David just sent me a question and asked me, he wants to know, David's out of Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. He said, did she have any clear memories of contact or abductions before she had the first hypnosis session?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. and which is not that uncommon, actually. I don't know. Just a lot of contactees, they get this thing, and it just starts wearing on them and working on them, and until they finally decide they've got to go check into this. Something's not right here. Something's definitely not right. Or they'll key off on things. They'll hear things at a conference, or they'll hear another contactee speaking, or they'll run into somebody that they know that they're not supposed to know. You know, and there's, and I've seen that happen 100 or more times. I mean, they're all sitting there going, well, I know you, and they live in entirely different states on entirely different sides of the country. And, that you got to take into consideration, because, I mean, we did, I think it was at Laughlin, maybe it was at Vegas. There was a group of us that had gotten together, and everyone was describing each other through the chat service on the net. But what was so funny is how accurate everybody was when everybody got together. And these were all contactees that had experiences together on a ship, that they knew each other from the ship, probably been having those experiences for life. But they didn't really put it together until they actually got off the ship and were sitting there, looking at each other going, well, I know you. And I know you actually quite well, too. And then they start talking about private things in their lives, and you're sitting there going, okay, because, you could say they were psychic and they were reading each other's minds, but it goes much deeper than that.
Well, I didn't, after the hypnosis of Bud Hoffman's, I didn't immediately leap into being a believer, especially about the military stuff. I thought, I've got to find out what really happened, because this is really disturbing. And so I started reading, I started studying, I started doing my own research. I went around to a lot of groups. There was one group in Las Vegas that met, I think it was at a church, and there was a circle of us, and we went around and we were all telling our stories about what had happened to us one at a time. When it got to be my turn, I just told my story in the most general of terms, because I was looking for other people's details that might confirm some of my details. So basically I said, well, I think we were gotten up in the middle of the night, taken out in the middle of the test site to test the radar on extraterrestrial craft, and then we're taken to what I think was Area 51, and a mind wipe procedure of some kind was done on us. And a guy across the room spoke up, and he said, did they stick you in the side of the neck with a needle too? And that was exactly what they had done.
Yeah, they use a nasty little cocktail to help wipe your memories out.
So after that, I just found too many pieces of other people's stories over the years that intersect with mine. And one well-known one is Dan Sherman, who wrote Above Black. There's a lot of points in his story that, to a person who doesn't know the military life, that might seem unimportant. But when you've been in it and you know the situation and you go through the experience yourself, you know that those points are common points. One is being given fatigues to wear with no rank insignia, no name tags, no identifying marks. Another one is being forbidden to speak to your coworkers or the people, working out with you, effectively isolating you and making you afraid, and making sure that you can't share any details with your other people. It aids the memory erasure to isolate and frighten and forbid and make sure that you don't see any identifying marks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just reinforces what they're doing.
Yeah.
But that's intimidation is a common practice in military abductions.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed, excuse me, my voice is going, but I've noticed in the last few years they seem to have lightened up on that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're wanting the contactees to remember more, but I think they've lightened up a little bit so they can try to get more data, because the original tactics just wasn't working the way they wanted them to.
Yeah.
They were using a combination of 6 or 7 drugs in a cocktail along with passive scanning, which is just an advanced form of hypnosis. It's kind of a hypnosis/telepathy. But they've been using it for years. But they're not near as good as the Greys or the humans or the reptilians are with it. But they're good enough to get some information, but they're looking for specific things. Like what you were talking about, being in school with the aliens, because we have what we call non-physical abductions, where it's like they take the essence, the soul, whatever you want to call it. They actually just take it. Now, as far as you're concerned, it feels like you're physically there.
Yeah.
Even though you're actually not, it does feel like you're physically there. I mean, it's completely interactive and the whole thing. And there's a whole host of stuff that happens doing these things. Sometimes it's just strictly data downloads, which a lot of contactees receive, and then it's opened in bursts, throughout life or throughout time, and those happen fairly frequently. Some of them are using what they call the teacher, which I think a contactee coined that name from one of the Star Trek episodes. It's some type of device they use to basically teaches you. You put it on your head, you learn. There's a screen and a helmet, and the two combinations actually teach you at the same time, and they say it works quite well. It's almost instantaneous. And then there's things that are laid out, according to what group you may be in, what batch you may be in, what's the final agenda for whatever group you may be part of, and things like that. So when we first started looking at this, we thought it was a much more simpler thing than it is today, but there seems to be several hundred aspects to contact.
Yeah.
And what's going on and why they're doing stuff. Because we have one group of contactees that describes an off-world colony, and they all describe it the same way. Got another group of contactees that describes a council chamber on a planet. It's funny because the first 4 or 5 contactees that told me about this, they said they seen this planet, looked a little bit bigger than Earth, but it was completely covered in water. There was no land masses. And as they were breaking the crescent of the planet or crossing the equator, they noticed what looked to be a big landmass, but what it was a big floating city. And they say there's a council in there with the chambers for all the races that meet, and there's a lot of them. And they all describe it in great detail. And then the ones that are describing the colony are describing it in great detail. Then you have another group that describes what everybody calls the Holocaust dream. It's probably 24, 25%, maybe even a third of contactees that have this dream, and they give chillingly similar details.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no nuclear bombs, there's no bombs of any kind. Most of them describe it as a pandemic. And then, it's quite a graphic thing when you listen to them talk to them. So you have that stuff rolled in, and that's combined with numbers from the contactees. And then there seems to be subtle agendas, not so subtle agendas, hybrid experiments, different types. And then there even seems to be, we stumbled across this about a decade ago. Now what's going on is we have contactees that have been being messed with the Greys or the humans or the reptilians, marrying contactees from a different group. So the children being born are children of both, like a reptilian or a human or an alien or a Grey and a human or so on and so forth. So this is a whole new phenomenon to all of this. And nobody even knows where this could possibly even be going. And then there's a thing, do aliens have a spiritual side? I can tell you the Greys don't believe in God. So do they have a spiritual side? So and I know people say the reptilians and the humans do, but nobody ever says if the Greys do or not. So, I guess it's one of those things. But I would think for some contactees, if you're functionally aware of what's going on doing a contact, you might be able to get a sense if it's a spiritual being or not a spiritual being, or if it's just someone that's kind of, like a doctor or somebody who's just doing their job and so on and so forth. Like we do to bears and tigers and deer and stuff all on a regular basis. We're forever abducting stuff like that. So somebody asked me one time what gives the aliens the right to do that, and I said, what gives humans the right to abduct the polar bear?
Right.
I said, it's the same right, guys. I said, if we can abduct the polar bear, they can abduct us. I said, they don't look at us as much different than that, so, I mean, it's a hard part. And how can you criticize a race that's only doing what we're doing? If they're abducting us and doing experiments on us and we're abducting other people, like the military abducting you and others, how can you fault the aliens for doing it?
Right, yeah.
So it's a catch-22.
Yeah, that's kind of the conclusion I drew. I mean, I get the impression now that, I was living a life on Earth on one hand, and then I would, live a partial life on the ship at night, and it was like being part of an entirely different culture.
Oh, yeah, because it's entirely a different culture.
Yeah.
It's and plus, for the contactees and the abductees that are coming to terms with this, a lot of times they can incorporate it in their life. So when they're on board the ship, because we got a group we call keepers, and basically what they do is they basically work with the aliens. They're maintaining the contactees when they come on board. They're trying to keep them stable, trying to keep them from flipping out, dealing with the different types of hybrids and children in some of these contacts and scenarios. So we call them keepers because they're fully and functionally aware of their contacts. They almost recall all of their contacts after an abduction. So they're very useful individuals in knowledge, and they seem to be very useful for the aliens. But I got to say, in general, most of these people are 45 or older. Not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah.
Probably a good 95% of them.
Yeah.
And I think the age thing has more to do with security and confidence. You know, most people are older, they get the more confident they get. So I think that might be part of it. Now, so when you realized that this was going on with the military, I mean, you had to have gotten pissed. I mean, it just had to have just made you mad as hell.
Oh, yeah. I was terrified, and I was just as enraged as I was terrified.
Yeah, wanting to tell somebody, not wanting to tell somebody, I can understand that. Wondering if there's going to be repercussions if you go public or if you don't go public. Now, since you've gone, I know we're getting close to a break here, but since you've gone public, any repercussions? Any
No,
threats?
not so far.
So far, it's been
I
kind of
did
quiet.
a documentary, Bruce Burgess' Dreamland, back in 1996 that came out, and I did an interview in shadow. And they didn't hide my identity well enough at all, so I got really scared again and just stayed away from the media for until the last year or two.
Well, I don't blame you on that. I mean, because
yeah.
until recently, and I'm not exactly sure what the change is. It's happened in the last 5 or 6 years. The government seemed to be much strict on this. They were monitoring things much closely, and they were definitely backing people in the corners and saying, don't talk, don't do this, don't do that. Suddenly, and from what I can see for no reason, they've slacked off on that policy.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they've realized that, you know, people like you and I can get up and gripe and complain all day long and nobody's going to take notice. So maybe that's why they backed off. I can't see any one reason why all of a sudden they just changed their method.
Well, there's some different reasons. I mean, they could just be getting more lenient. My intuition tells me that there's an awful lot of people within the organizations themselves that are finding this kind of activity really unpalatable.
No, I can imagine that.
And they just are, and they may be behind the greater leniency.
It is. In general, it has seemed, in most of the cases we've been getting lately, that they have been more lenient.
Yeah.
There has been some that have crossed their boundaries, because some of the mill labs do retain a lot more memories than other ones, and sometimes some of the stuff, like there was a gentleman just recently, they had picked him up. They were wanting to know, because he had talked about on the air about working some of the controls, some of the telepathy controls on one of the gray ships.
Yeah.
And they picked him up, and they brought him in this room, and they gave him some instrumentation, told him to work it, he worked it, told him what it was, the whole 9 yards. Well, I don't think he was supposed to go out and tell the rest of the world that. Mm-hmm. And of course he did, and there were some threats made against him and his family, and but they just told him, look, we don't mind you knowing, and we don't mind you even talking about it with friends and family, but let's not be broadcasting it to the world. Yeah. And they basically told me you have children, so why don't you listen? Yeah. And what are you going to say to that? I mean, when they threatened me 8 years ago about talking about the alien agenda on air, that's what they did. They didn't threaten me personally. They threatened my family. Yeah. Because threatening me was a waste of time. I was, it wasn't going to do them any good. But threatening my family, that was enough for me. I just said, okay, we'll go on to something else.
Well, there's also people that recover their memories from hypnosis. They've got this false memory syndrome foundation now.
Yeah.
And so they can discredit people that remember things through hypnosis.
Yeah.
But when you cross-check and you check and you cross-check and you check, and other people come up with the same stuff, and some of them didn't have hypnosis to remember, but you're remembering the same stuff as them, and you never had any prior contact with them, well, where do you go with that?
Yeah, that's the thing.
And if you dig into some of the mind control programs like Monarch and MK Ultra and some of the other things, and some of the shows that are coming out on History Channel and some of the stuff out there on the Internet, it starts to get really clear that maybe there's so many people remembering things that are damaging to the U.S. government through hypnosis that they had to come out with some kind of program to discredit us.
They got to have some way to.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the government can get away with a lot of stuff by saying, oh, they're a nutcase, or she's just crazy, or what have you, Mm-hmm. And that's fine if it's one person or even 5 people. When you start talking 500, and people start going, when you start talking 5,000, then they're really going, oh, well, wait a minute now. Yeah. And then what's interesting about it is like myself and a few other close researchers that I know, we don't reveal everything. Okay, we put out to date probably about 50% of what we call abduction criteria or MILAB criteria. We make public. The other 50% I don't, because when contactees come to me, I want to know that they're telling me the truth.
Yep.
And if I make all of that information, I'll never know. I'll be sitting here going, because I learned something early on that one of the problems with contactees was there's usually a couple of sets of memories in there, especially if you have a military abduction, because there's 3 or 4 sets of memories in there. And I've learned over the years that sometimes the memories bleed through on each other, and it creates scenarios in the person's head that aren't actually true. It's just combinations of. And the reason we started looking into this is because we had a base of all these cases, and all the base stuff is the same, like what happens in your 20s, what happens in your 30s, and other experiments and different types of scenarios are all the same for all of these people. But then there's segments that are completely and utterly different, and some of it just doesn't even make any sense at all. Now, we know every contactee can't be right. We know that. We understand that.
Right.
So we understand that a lot of this information is confused, or sometimes it's just simple. You know, some of this stuff is beyond us, so we're trying to put it into human terms, which may or may not even be possible in some of this stuff. So, yeah, it gets a little messed up and it gets a little confusing, and so, you know, that's why we use several ways to recover memories, from therapy to hypnosis to several other things that we do. But
there's also people's perceptual filters,
yes,
that they get raised with. You know, they get raised with a particular mindset and everything. They may perceive a situation as threatening, whereas a spiritually based person might perceive it an entirely different way.
Yeah, and they might. And then, what's like my Native American friends, most of the ones that are contactees have a spiritual tone to it. Now, it's not always a good spiritual tone, mind you, but there's a spiritual tone to it. And like they said, you know, they've been in contact with these people for a long time, or these beings for a long time, and they don't think they're gods or anything like that, but they do add a sense of spirituality to the contact. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but they definitely do it. And it's going to be different. I mean, if you were raised Catholic all your life, you know, or Baptist or Buddhist, you know, it's going to make you look at this from a different light or a different view. It's like the people who write me and tell me all abductions are demonic possession, or all aliens are fallen angels. I'm like, where the hell did you get that from?
Yeah, I know.
You know, I'm thinking, and it's not that I don't believe in God or the Creator. Now, I do think there's a Creator there, and I think there's other entities, but in this case, I think these are aliens.
Yeah.
And I never did understand that, and I'm sure you've run into that yourself from time to time.
Well, I've been a very big respecter of science my entire life. Ever since I could read, I've been checking out books on all the different sciences as a small child, because I really wanted to understand the world I lived in. And I think that came from my ET contacts. It
might have. It's probably a part of it.
You know, I was just really driven about it, and I still keep a lot of tabs on, you know, current scientific discoveries and everything else like that, because, you know, I wonder, you know, what if in Star Trek the criteria for contacting first contact with a species was when they became warp capable. Now, we may have warp capability that's not out in the open, as you and I both may know.
Yeah.
But what if the real criteria for first contact is our ability to learn about dimensions beyond our third dimension? You know, I think they've postulated now that there may be 11 other dimensions beyond the one we live in and interact in.
Michio Keiku's theory. I actually had him on air not too long ago talking about that.
What was that?
Michio Keiku's theory is the 11 dimension theory. Current science says there's unlimited dimensions, but nobody knows for sure.
Yeah, so if you look at quantum mechanics and you look at the other dimensions in superstring theory and you start putting all that stuff together, that gives humanity the scientific ability to kind of leap beyond their 3D boundary. And once we can do that, beings who are interdimensional in their nature, they might think, well, maybe these people are getting ready for contact. You know, maybe now that they're able to see that there are other dimensions and that they may be multidimensional, maybe that's one of their criteria for contact.
It might be, and for us, honestly, I think we were just dumb luck. But I tell you what, we got to go take a break.
Okay.
So we're going to take a break right quick, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to pick this conversation back up in about 10 minutes with Niara Isley. And guys, you can write into right now, because I'm still on the 800 number right now. I'm still using it, but y'all can write to me via any of the emails, icar@cox.net, uprn@cox.net, Or you can come in the virtual auditorium on Pal Talk and put your hand up and ask your question live, or you can send it to me in an instant message via that way. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. I want everyone to please stay tuned to UFO Undercover. I'm your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm sitting speaking with Niara Isley, and we'll be back in about 8 minutes, so please stay tuned. And we are...
Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to UFO Undercover. I hope everyone is enjoying the show this evening. I see we have quite a good audience logged in on all the servers, and nice and heavy, which I like to see. Some of our friends in Australia, good morning, or actually it's getting close to afternoon for y'all. How y'all doing? From our friends in the UK, it's about 2 a.m., 2:20 in the morning. Guys, I'm glad you stayed up to listen to us. All my friends out on the East Coast, it's early in the afternoon for y'all. Y'all probably hanging around the house, having beer, barbecuing, and aggravating the wife and the children. But, I'm glad for everybody to be tuning in. I hope y'all are enjoying the show this evening. Tonight's guest is Niara Isley, and why I keep having trouble with her name's beyond me, but she's been a very nice lady, and we're going to get into some stuff here, but I'm going to get her to tell us a little bit, kind of a basic, we'll call it a preview of her experiences. And that way you can oh, wait, before we do that, though, you got a book coming out, don't you?
Oh, yeah, it's not quite close to coming out yet.
Oh, okay,
it's still in work, but I am, giving myself permission to deeply explore all my spirit experiences, all my insights around them, and where I think they might be taking me. And, just really looking at the light side, because, with what happened to me, I know the darkest of the dark. I really do. But as a spiritual person, I also know that there's an equally corresponding light in the world, and I just believe the light is stronger, and that we're going to move into a remarkable time in human history soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's what that end of life as we know it and the start of the golden age thing is in 2012. Mm-hmm. But let me get you, just take your time,
sure.
and you can go either way you want, contact, mail air, whatever you want, just take your time and just give us a basic preview so the audience that's listening to you knows. And when you're done, though, let me get you to give them an email or a contact so they can find you if they want to email you or if somebody's had a common experience. But go ahead and take your time.
Okay, well, basically I had the friend that asked me to tell my Air Force time chronologically. We discovered 3 months of missing time, and I felt really scared about that 3 months of time I couldn't remember. Later that year, I had hypnosis with Bruce Hopkins. And what I remembered is this. I remembered childhood abductions, but over and above that, I remembered I came into the experience standing on the deck of a radar van, and I was an auto-track radar specialist, which is surface air missile and anti-aircraft artillery radar. And then I was standing on the deck of the radar van, I'm looking up in the sky, and there are discs floating in the sky, extraterrestrial spacecraft-looking discs floating in the sky. One of them was really close. I could see it in pretty good detail. It was glowing orange on the bottom. There was a sound coming from it, like the hum of speakers at a rock concert where no sound, no music is playing through, but they're on, and they're kind of emitting that low hum with a crackle here and there. And we were wearing fatigues with no rank insignia, no name tags. We were forbidden to speak to each other beyond what was necessary to run the radar test. And then we were, a little bit later, put on a bus and taken to what I think was Area 51. Don't know for absolute certain because the windows of the bus were blacked out. But we were taken to a medical dispensary-type facility that was sophisticated in that they had a lot of stuff there, but it was kind of more 50s style chairs and buildings and things like that. And we were sat down in a waiting room, the lights off. There was, I would guess, 12 to 15 of us. One by one, they call our name, and we go off into a little room on the side. People went in that room. They didn't come back out. And when it was my turn to go in there, there was an armed security guard wearing desert camouflage fatigues with a sidearm. He was standing at parade rest. I was told to lay down on a stainless steel examining table, fully closed, didn't take anything off. And I laid there for a while, feeling really scared, more and more scared as every moment passed. And then some guy came in a white lab coat, walked in past the security guard at the foot of the table, walked around the right side of my head saying, "Stay calm," 3 times in a real deadpan voice. And when he got up beside the right side of my head, he brought his hand up in one smooth move and injected me in the side of the neck with a hypodermic needle. And at that point, I was so terrified, I came out of hypnosis spontaneously. And that's when I started my quest to find out just what the heck was going on. You know, I'm trying to keep my language clean here.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, so I really started checking things out. I started reading and researching and talking to people and listening to their details to see if they would confirm my details, which I withheld inside myself because I thought, I've got to find my details confirmed. I don't want to say them and then have somebody say, "Oh, yeah, that's it," you know. I really wanted confirmation. And every time I got confirmation, I got this terrible feeling of somebody walking over my grave, you know, or a sinking in quicksand feeling.
Yeah.
But I kept going with it. And then about in 2003, I had some subsequent hypnosis because I wanted to fill in some gaps and find out what happened later. So we picked up where the last hypnosis had left off in '94, and after the injection, in the subsequent hypnosis session, after that injection, I was dragged down a very, very long, nightmarishly long set of stairs. I'm assuming to an underground facility of some kind, and I was dumped in a half dumped into a room with a one-way observation mirror. So mirror on my side, glass on the other. And I assume I was being watched while I went through the effects of that injection, which were not pleasant. When I started recovering from that injection just a little bit, I was still shaking, was laying on the floor of that room. I was drug out of there again by guards wearing desert camouflage, and I was raped by 2 security guards while 8 people watched. And so there's probably some of the intensity that people have when they talk about these experiences. They're not pleasant, and they do bring up a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling.
Yeah, they're very hard to deal with.
So anyway, that was the crux of that experience, and there's a lot more that I'm not going to go into here. And then we also did a session in 2003 to look at my ET contacts or abductions, and that's also pretty remarkable material. And I guess apparently some of the usual mind control techniques that they did to people didn't really work too well on me, so they had to use other measures. And I'll be writing about those extensively in my book. But a lot of it is of a sexual nature, and that's something that I feel is talked about far too little, because our culture, we have a very circumspect attitude about sex and sexuality in our Earth human culture. And then it's entirely different when you're out there interacting with these other beings, because they want to understand about human sexuality, so that means that they, want to see how you work. And I think that a lot of people get sex addiction issues from those experiences, and there's a whole, conundrum of things that surround that that really needs to be opened up and talked about a great deal more than it is, so that people can come to some kind of resolution with that. Because for me, my experience was, here I am in sexual contact with a non-human person, and sex feels good, so one of my, figurative feet is on my gas pedal, going, saying, this is really feeling good, and then I'm with a non-human being, and so my other figurative foot is on the brake pedal, going, whoa, this is too strange, stop, 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 halt, halt, halt. So it's like an experience of having the foot on the gas pedal and the brake to the floor at the same time. And I just have a feeling that there are many people out there that have to deal with this kind of situation and then the problems that it carries into their regular Earth life and sexuality.
Well, no, it's true. I mean, it is something that's not talked about much. I've got cases where the reptilians have raped women. I've got cases where the humans have raped women. And I've got cases where they said the military did it as well. Now, and ladies and gentlemen, if y'all are listening to the show tonight, this is not everybody by any means. I want y'all to understand that. But there are a few cases that what she's talking about falls right in. Now, what's interesting about this is if you go back 6,000 years, the Sumerians talk about this. They talk about these human aliens that came to the planet and that created a race to mine and inhabit the planet that in turn created a race of slaves, that the reptilians used to come in, steal their women, rape them, and the children that were born were different, meaning they were self-aware. They were self-aware children. That's the race that exists on the planet today. So that's why we all think the aliens have been here for so long, because they actually have been here for quite some time, and we're probably descendants, at least two of the species. But it still doesn't give them the right to do that. Now, I'll tell you, and this probably doesn't make any difference or anything better for you, but the reptilians say, or the amphibians, whatever you want to call them, say that since they have genetic memory and their contactees are related to them, it's not necessarily rape is a thing that happens in their society. I don't know how you justify that any way it goes. In the military, there is no justification, none whatsoever. And for the human-type aliens, it's really not either other than the fact that they're curious and they want to know. But I've always had a firm rule about everything. Because, I get people with mixed experience. Some are good, some are bad, some are in between. I have this rule. I don't care if you have a good contact or not. If the aliens did not ask you permission, whether it's a good contact or not, then they're automatically wrong. If they're not saying, can I come see you? Can I have sex? Can I do this? Can I have that? Then they're automatically wrong. And I'm sure it's not something they would want to happen to them, even though they do it to us. But, there's not much we can do about it either. I mean, talking about it like this, talking about it like this, Niara, is a good way to get other people aware of it, even to get other people talking about it. Is it going to change anything? I don't know. We can hope. What we can hope for is a fundamental change in mentality across the planet, is I guess we really should hope for.
Well, you've heard the term wanderer, haven't you? Okay. I was listening to someone sent me a YouTube video of a woman I think she's down in Australia, who's doing work with abductees, and I can't think of her name right now because I've been on vacation and been away from things, but she said something that really hit on something that I've kind of joked about years before, was that, having attention deficit disorder, I definitely had that as a small child. And I jokingly say that it kept me from being indoctrinated to the system by getting my usual dose of education at school. But she talked about it as the fact that there's so many of these kids that are coming in now that have attention deficit disorder. They get dosed with Ritalin or something. But she thinks that they intentionally have this attention deficit disorder so to avoid being indoctrinated, to avoid being educated in the rote recitation type of educational system that we have.
Well, it's not uncommon for contactees to have ADT. It really isn't. I wouldn't say it's a prerequisite for it, but I would say probably 50 or 60% of them probably have it. And and it probably has a lot to do with being part of this scenario that's been going on your whole life, and probably through your family line for umpteen generations. What I found interesting about this, and I can't say this for the amphibians. I can kind of for the amphibians, but for the Greys especially. I've been told, like I was taught, we got generational cases that span 6 and 7 generations now. And I was talking with, like, the great-great-grandmother. The Grey that's abducting her is the same Grey that's abducting the great-great-granddaughter. And that Grey told the great-great-grandmother that he also abducted her great-great-great-grandmother. So, sometimes you're even having the same alien through an entire family line. So for y'all who believe in reincarnation, which I don't know if it's true or not, that's got to be an interesting experience, because if you've been abducted by a Grey in a previous life and you're coming back, at least you got some warning, I guess, or maybe you can deal with it easier, or if you're born in the same family lines, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about how that works, but
yeah,
it is interesting that they live that long, and they can, and it also gives them a unique view. I mean, they're watching entire family lines progress. I'm sure they've even watched some family lines, go out of existence. They may have even caused a few to go out of existence.
Yeah, well, they're either long-lived or they're long-lived, and the time-space area that we're taken to doesn't operate the same as it does here.
Well, no, it definitely. I know with the Greys, they have the ability to phase you out of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for a lack of a better way of explaining this, it's like you're in a bubble sitting outside of time. Time is still moving, everything else is going on, but in that circle, nothing's moving.
Yeah.
You're still existing, they're still doing stuff from you, but they can actually put you back at the moment they took you if they want.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we learned about 14 years ago was all of a sudden we stopped having all these missing time cases. And we were like, well, we know the aliens haven't stopped abducting people, so what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
That's when they probably developed a way or started using the method of moving them outside of time. Because all of a sudden the aliens people started being brought back 10 minutes before they were abducted, an hour before they were abducted, things like that. It's just really, really weird. I mean, you'd think it would cause a paradox of some kind.
Uh-huh.
But they seem to be doing it, and there seems to be evidence for it, and it's called gain time or advanced time, and contactees experience it quite often these days. So that's what they're doing. And then we've got cases, and I'm sure the listeners have heard me say this a million times, but we've had cases where, I've seen a couple at night, okay, had dinner with them at night. I went out and had a nice dinner. Next morning, I get a phone call. The woman's got 3 weeks of hair growth on her leg. The guy's got a full beard. Now, guys know it takes 2 to 3 weeks to grow a full beard.
Mm-hmm.
Most women know to have that much hair that she had on her hair was definitely 2 or 3 weeks worth of growth. So what happened here, I mean, I seen them that night, I seen them that morning. There's no way that much hair grew in their body in that 8-hour period that I didn't see them, so obviously they were taken out of phase.
Yeah.
And they were gone for 2 or 3 weeks. And sometimes you can recover some of those memories. A lot of times you can't recover anything. Mm-hmm. And they started using this, for a lack of a better way of explaining this, they kind of started looping memories. They actually use your own memories. Now, they used to put in false memories or erase memories. Mm-hmm. Now they just lay a memory over it and they loop it. So as far as your mind's concerned, it's something like, a drive to work or something.
Yeah.
And the only reason people catch this is occasionally they'll loop somebody's memory, and there might have been a wreck on the day they decide to use it, which isn't a common everything day. Mm-hmm. Or they may have been a hot dog vendor that used to be on the right side of the street that went out of business, but for some reason that morning you've seen it, when it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So things like that, kind of tip them off about that gain time thing. But it is a dimensional thing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is. It's some way. I don't know if we could call it dimension or time shift. I'm sure there's a scientific name for it, but I'm not the scientist to name it. And I actually asked Dr. Keku about that when he was on the show, what he thought about dimensional shifts. And he thinks it's something that can happen. He don't think we have the technology for it, but he does think it's something we will in the near future.
Yeah. Einstein's special theory of relativity.
Yeah. And, well, there's a lot of good stuff out there. I mean, Dr. Paul Levette has quite a few. He does quantum kinetics, and he's the father of the cosmic pulse theory. Mm-hmm. And he's a really good scientist. And Neil deGrasse has been on. He's pretty good at what he does. And I like talking to theoretical physicists. I think they're great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they're fascinating.
Sometimes it's a little much for a radio program, but I love it. I have a ball. It really is. Now, where else going with all this? Oh, I got myself sidetracked myself here. Mm-hmm. Now, do you know if you have any experiences now? I mean, can you sense anything, or?
If I'm having contacts now, I think that there may be occasional ones with the theta reticulans. Mm-hmm. But I think that my astral travel to the mothership, where I get instruction, is definitely still going on.
Yeah, that falls into the non-physical abduction.
And that feels good. I mean, one time I thought, I really want to remember what I'm learning out there. Can I remember? No, you're not supposed to remember. Not right now. You'll remember when you need to remember.
Yeah.
And I did manage to catch one phrase that I woke up with one morning. This was a few years ago. And the phrase was this. It was, and then you will see a fully representational Earth. And I just thought, well, if I had to bring back the phrase, that's a pretty good one.
You might be part of the new colony. You never know what's going on out there.
Uh-huh.
And And you know what's weird about the colony is, and this gets researchers in trouble all the time, because when people are describing it sometimes, because it is kind of a cool little thing that they got going on there, but it does sometimes, if the wrong person is describing it, it kind of comes off with a kind of really heavy New Age tinge to it, which of course turns off a lot of the researchers in the field. Mm-hmm. You know, they instantly go, oh, well, these are a bunch of crazy New Agers, and you know, they don't know nothing about nothing. But you know, you can't. You got to listen to what everybody says, and you know, you got to take some of it with a grain of salt, because you know not everything is correct. Mm-hmm. But you got to listen, because you never know what piece of the puzzle you're going to get. You know, for me, like you, when I'm interviewing someone like you, you're a piece of the puzzle to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm on piece 13,000 now, and the puzzle still has probably 100,000 pieces to go.
Yeah, I know. It's my wish that all the traditional UFO researchers and all the exopolitics people and everybody could set aside their infighting and their enmity for each other and just sit down and start putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah. Well, it's gotten better than it used to be now. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. You've been indoctrinated to Michael Sala's Exopolitics Advisory Board, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so welcome on there. I actually am on the advisory board. Mm-hmm. Dr. Sala is, we've actually had many, many interesting conversations. We agree on a lot of stuff. We don't agree on everything, but we really had some, we really had some really good conversations. And I've actually interviewed his, I keep wanting to say his wife, his friend, because I don't actually know if they're married or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but Angelique is a lot of fun to interview as well. But she catches a lot of trouble because she talks about New Age stuff. It's tough, you know. I guess it just depends on what venue you're in, what kind of BS you're going to catch. Because if you're down in Sedona, you better be talking about some of that stuff, or they're going to run you out of town.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like this. You know, I've always had such a respect for hard science my whole life. You know, and kept a foot firmly in the left brain side of my life. But as my life has progressed and I've had to open up spiritually and things like that, and then as, quantum mechanics started coming around and holographic theory, that started to lay the foundation for why some of the New Age stuff could be a lot more real than people have given it credit to be. And as I follow my own feelings, yes, they can't be tested in a laboratory and they can't be ironclad found to be absolutes. But I'm getting to the point where, up to a cautious, boundary, I'm really trusting my feelings.
Well, you
and
should.
When I listen to them, I don't go wrong. It's when I don't listen to them that I get into trouble.
And that's usually true for most people. I hate to say it, but it really is.
Yeah.
Most people, not everybody, but most people should pay more attention to their own feelings and their own aspects on this, because, and it's not just in ufology, it's in all walks of life, because usually when you go against the grain, it has a tendency to come back and bite you right square in a you-know-what.
Yeah.
And it's hard to make people understand that. It's also hard to make people understand that it is okay to talk about this, and no, it's not going to be accepted by everybody, but it is okay. But, over the last few years, one of the things the ICAR does is we're kind of like ufology's policemen. And we have been forcing the ufologies to be more specialized in what they're doing. We talk about it on the air on all of the shows, not just on mine, but, there's 30 shows on the network now. And they're all talking about it. Ufology needs to specialize more. They need to communicate more. They need to be way less infighting and backbiting. And it has come down some. Because one of the things for me, one of the most disappointing things for me when I actually got into ufology out of research and into ufology, I was very disappointed by most of the researchers I met. Yeah. They really didn't know near as much as they were portraying that they did. And I noticed when I attended the conferences that a lot of times I was just hearing the same thing at every conference.
Yep. So
I was very disappointed by that, especially knowing how many good contactees and how many good researchers there are out there. Why is this going on? I was just told the other day, there is no women and no experiences representing MUFON at the Denver Symposium. And that just kind of threw me for a loop. I'm thinking, wait a minute. There's no contactees at all, no experiences at all. And that was bad enough. And then when the person wrote, well, Joe, they don't even have a woman speaking.
Yeah, well, where would ufology be without experiencers to call their attention to things that need to be researched?
Yeah, and that's the truth. And Well, I said this to Bill Burns in an interview a year ago. Without the contact, you can chase lights in the sky till you're blue in the face. You're not going to get the truth that way. And if you're waiting for Obama to tell you, you can forget it. The only way you're going to get the truth is through the contactees.
Yeah.
And you have to interview them all, and you have to keep finding them and keep adding pieces of the puzzle, because then I've had this debate with Stephen Bissett on many occasions. There is no reason for the government to even want to disclose. Mm-hmm. It's just not to their benefit.
No, it's not. That's why I wrote that the Human Cost of National Security Act of 1947, secrecy.
Yeah.
To try to get people to understand this has to, we can't wait for the government to do this. This has to be a grassroots effort. I heard that from some of the researchers at LAFA, and I think I heard it from Paola Harris and from some other people. And I just feel like each one of us that has a story to tell need to speak up and step up to the plate and talk about it.
Yeah.
Until there's so many of us, we can't be ignored, and we force the issue.
And we're pushing it hard.
Yes.
And and it needs to be pushed hard. See, I'm lucky. I got the show and I got the organization. It wasn't always like this for me. Believe me. One of the reasons we have all of this is because I did find myself swimming in the sea by myself, going, "What the hell?" Yeah. And fortunately, my wife was a contactee, and it was easier for me to deal with this. But still, it aggravated me that there was nowhere for anybody to go or anybody to talk about this, or to even have a venue to vent.
Right.
Because there's some days I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to vent. The SOBs picked me up. They did this and that, and I'm just aggravated about the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's all I need. Just somebody to listen for me to vent for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm in a better mood, and I feel better, and the world seems to be a better place, and I can go on with my everyday life. Because
that support's really important.
Every contactee is a hero in the fact that they deal with this, and they still lead a normal, as much of a normal life as you can. Yeah. I know, like you try to do the... because contactees are kind of out of phase with everybody else, but they do try to live a normal life. They really do try to act like everyone else and interact like everyone else, but they're really not like everyone.
Well, we do have to live here,
Yeah, we do. We do. We got to share the planet with the other 5-point-whatever billion people on it, or 6 billion people on it, and it's just one of those things we have to deal with. But I know for you it's got to be tough. I mean, when you're out there and like if you speak or lecture at a conference, or even when you do a radio show like this, I mean, if you run into any family or friends, do they give you any static about it, or are they...
Well, I just spent some time with family, and I showed them the YouTube Clifford Stone and Robert Dean video, and a little short video by Richard Dolan, and a few other choice clips, and I think it really opened their eyes.
Yeah, that's good.
So I told them, this is what I'm doing, and you're probably going to hear about it eventually, and here it is, and I'm going to keep doing it. And
you should.
That's it, so...
You should stay plugging away at it.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with it because I know there's other people out there like me that have had those military experiences, and I really would love to see them find some peace and reclaim some sense of being able to live and be happy and set aside the depression and the despair and, the fear. The fear is a big thing. It's a big hurdle to get over because you get scared. You're scared for your family. You're scared for yourself. But the thing is how long can you live with that axe hanging over your head? At some point, this is where the spirituality comes in. Sometimes you just get to the point, I'm so tired of struggling with the fear that I'm just going to, I just want to let go, and then in that moment of surrender, you kind of fall into the arms of the divine, and it catches you, But you just reach a point where you just get burned out with the fear, and you just think, I can't live this way anymore. Yeah. I can't give my power away to fear anymore, whether it's real, whether it's imagined, whether somebody's going to come after me or whether they're not. I can't live with this kind of fear anymore. I have to just be who I am. I have to speak out. I have to, say what's true for me. And let the devil take the hindmost.
Well, you have to, because fear is just another form of stress.
Yeah.
And stress kills.
Yeah, and let me tell you something, what happens when you do set aside the fear. When you do set aside the fear, you have an incredible opening of your consciousness. Because suddenly, all that tension in you starts to unwind. more of that non-coding DNA gets available to you and starts to turn on, and you start having more expanded abilities, and you start being able to sense more, and you start being able to intuit more, because fear isn't jamming your radar anymore. And this is really important.
No, it is. As a matter of fact, one of the criteria we use when we're looking at new contactees or new abductees is I've never met a contactee or an abductee that's not empathic. A lot of them are telepathic, but all of them are empathic.
Yeah.
I've just never met one that wasn't a full-blown empath. What's rough about that, though, because first off, if you don't know your contactee, you're probably not even going to be aware of this ability. Maybe if you've been, Joe, I'd be standing in a room and all of a sudden I was just bawling. I was so depressed I couldn't stand it, and there was no reason for it. Well, after a while, you realize just sensing someone else's emotion, just like you do. Sometimes one of them will walk in the room in a bad mood or a good mood, and the whole mood of the room changes without them even saying anything. And those kind of things are important because, once you can teach a contactee about that, it makes their life easier because then they realize sometimes what they're feeling is not actually theirs.
Right.
It could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be some stranger walking down the damn street. But, one of the things they need to learn is what emotions is theirs and what emotions are not theirs.
Right, yeah. I call it the tuning fork effect. If you have two tuning forks in a room and you strike one, it starts to vibrate. The other one will start picking up the vibration and sympathy.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And it really is, and it's something that, it's hard to get contactees to learn. It's even hard to teach them sometimes. But then I've noticed, most contactees, when they come to terms with this and they start dealing with this, a lot of them started using these abilities to their advantage. Whether it's empathic or telepathic or whatever it may be, they tend to use it to their advantage.
Right.
And the ones that do usually become fairly successful in a lot of different ways, not always financially, but in a lot of ways they become successful.
Right.
And it allows them to explore a whole new realm of possibilities in their life. So I like seeing that, and it's like I got a lot of friends that are in different New Age areas or metaphysical areas and stuff like that, and I like that because to me it's another form of religion. But contactees are drawn to that. You'll find that some contactees early on may get into the Christian religions or the Muslim religions or even to the dark arts for a while. But it doesn't answer their questions.
No.
The New Age religions actually answer some. Don't answer all of the questions, but it does answer some of the questions, which a lot of times is enough to get the person to open up enough to understand what they actually are.
Yeah, well, at the very least, it's kind of a pointer in the right direction.
Yeah, it does get them pointed in the right direction. I tell everybody everything on the planet serves a purpose. It's just figuring out what purpose that it actually serves. Yeah. And in that case, I really think that's part of what it actually serves.
Yeah.
But you still got to deal with it, and you still got to understand it, and then, like people like yourself who are out publicly speaking about it, still have to deal with the everyday person out there that may hear this and go, okay, what did she just say?
Yeah.
And why did she say that? And things along those lines. But you don't get much criticism, do you? Have you run into like any hard brick walls or?
No, I haven't really yet. It might happen, but I feel well healed today. I feel confident in my ability to work with people. I'm a new Denver extraterrestrial contact examiner, and I'm trying to write articles, really dip into my own creativity and write articles that are going to pique people's interest who haven't really taken an active interest in UFOs or ETs, to get them to think about the subject and to think about the topic. Because those abilities that we were just talking about a minute ago, about telepathy and empathy and those kinds of things, they're the same abilities that were demonstrated by masters of the Far East. In the books, there was a series of books called Masters of the Far East, and there was Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And the abilities that were demonstrated by the yogis and saints in these books, those abilities may belong to that 97% non-coding DNA that we have most likely from extraterrestrial sources.
Yeah, probably.
And if we have first opened full contact with extraterrestrial beings who have a mastery of those abilities, and all of that DNA is turned on in them, I think that humanity could have a very rapid expansion of consciousness as those abilities turn on in us because we're using them with these beings that have a mastery of those abilities.
It's all of that is quite within the realm of possibility. You know, because I always wondered about this, you know, because E.T.'s been visiting the planet for so long, and people tell me all the time they're either here to enlighten us or to destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I judge them by their actions, and their actions doesn't suggest either one of those.
Yeah.
If they were here to enlighten the species, look, 6,000 years is way more than enough time to enlighten it, and we should be much more advanced and not be near as fractured as we are as a society. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of rule that they're not out here to do that. And if they were going to destroy us 6,000 years ago, it would have been much easier.
Right.
I mean, what were we going to do, hit them with a spear, bow and arrow? I mean, come on. Today, at least, we got nukes, which still probably wouldn't hurt their craft, but we do have nukes. And so, you know, for me, it's I think, and I hate to do this, especially to my contactees that call in and write to me and all, but, you know, really, especially in the Greys case and even the reptilians and humans, it's more about them than it is about us.
Yeah.
You know, they have an agenda. There's something they need to do and complete, and it does involve us, but we're not even the primary part of it, and we're not even the total outcome of it.
That's true, but there are spiritually evolved ETs out there also who do want human enlightenment, but they understand certain things that these other races don't. And so rather than swoop in and do a codependent rescue, which if you've ever gone to Codependence Anonymous, you might have an idea what I'm talking about, rather than swoop in and do a codependent rescue, which would be disempowering to humanity as a species, they're trying to work within what's going on to try to find out how can we help them in such a way that empowers them rather than disempowers them.
Well, and that's going to be more about growth and age than that is anything else.
Yeah.
Well, we're such a young species. I mean, the species we're talking about, the three primary species we're talking about, I mean, the youngest one is probably the humans, and they're probably in the 500, 600, 700 million range, along with the reptilians. The Greys are supposed to be in the 1.5 billion or more range. Mm-hmm. They're so far beyond us that literally it's going to take thousands of years for us to even get on a mental plane with them. Now, one of the advantages we have is that if we're actually related to 2 or 3 of them, then we might have the ability to catch this faster than they did. Or they may be sitting here monitoring us until such a time that we do catch it. Because let's be honest, this is not a race that's ready to be part of the galactic community. We're not. I mean, we're trying to blow each other up on a planet, so you know if we got in space, we'd be trying to blow up extraterrestrials. So at this point, we're just not that race. And I think they have a vested interest in keeping us at certain levels of technology. Because we don't want to get out there and start nuking aliens.
Yeah, well, this is part where I hope that I can bring something new to the field because of all the spiritual inquiry I've done and other study. You know, a lot of what I've done has not been restricted to UFOs and extraterrestrials, or even New Age stuff. There was a man named Teilhard de Chardin, who, according to his study, and he was a spiritual man as well, that there's a spark of consciousness in every single tiny piece of matter. And that consciousness directs evolution towards an expression of greater and greater freedom. And so whoever's trying to hold us back, or who's ever trying to help us, or whatever else, there's still that spark of consciousness in every single tiny piece of matter, from atomic particles all the way up to us and who knows where. And it's constantly moving towards that greater and greater freedom of expression. So whatever the agendas are of different groups, they still have to contend with that.
Yeah, but then we also have to contend with our negative, violent side that may destroy us all.
Yeah, we always have our shadow.
Well, see, for us, and I don't think the extraterrestrials have anything to do with this part, there's a line as a species we walk. And lately, I think as a species, we've been walking more on the left or the dark side than we have on the right and the light side. It's not, and this is hard to make people understand, because technically, the world is the most peaceful place it has ever been in its entire history. There are less people dying because of warfare and murders today than there ever has been. There are less people dying of starvation and so on than there ever has been. There's less disease on the planet. Technically, the planet is in its golden age. But the problem is the society doesn't feel that way. And it's not just Americans, it's everybody. If you talk to people around the world, because we got many, many guests from around the world and many callers, and you get the same sense. You know, it's like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's just, this can't be everything. This just can't be, you know, what this is about. And so you get this whole sense off the whole planet, but at the same breath, you're not seeing any significant change. You know, it's like the Bush-Obama thing. Everybody said, oh, Obama. Well, I could have told you before Obama got elected that he was just going to be baby Bush, which is what he turned out to be. He's doing the same thing. He's taxing us. He's doing the whole same 9 yards. He's not going to disclose extraterrestrials. Matter of fact, he kind of made a joke about it when he was asked about it. So, you know, you're not seeing any real significant changes.
Yeah, well, I'm not, you know, I guess I haven't run and jumped on Obama's bandwagon like some people have.
Well,
nor do I think that he's the Antichrist either.
No, I don't think he's the Antichrist.
You know,
I mean, I do pick on him. I do pick on people about that.
I'm going to have to see some real measurable, demonstrable change before I become a supporter.
Yeah, well, I thought it was funny because quite a few ufologists are big-time Obama supporters, and then Richard Dolan was a big-time Obama supporter, and he was on my show a couple of weeks ago. He started calling him Bush Light, which I've noticed that's stuck. I've heard other radio show hosts now say that, and a couple of TV shows. But the problem is he really is. I mean, he said, oh, I'm going to end the wars. He didn't say I was going to end the war. He said, I'm going to end the wars, meaning plural. Well, he didn't do that. He's not actually ending Iraq war. He's just bringing some of the troops home. He's sending more troops to Afghanistan. He said he wasn't going to give no money to the Middle East, but he's giving Pakistan $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically he's doing the same. And then the Bush bailout program, he copied it. You know, so, I mean, he did basically the same thing. So, but not to pick on Obama, because I know he's got his hands full like every other world leader does. The thing of it is the point I'm trying to make here is he's still the same as Bush, and Bush was the same as Clinton, and Clinton was the same as Reagan. You can go back all the way back to Kennedy and see a progression of leaders here that really haven't really done much of anything.
Yeah.
It's not just in this country. I mean, it's around the world, and the people are the ones that got to change things, but we're not the ones in power.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, that's people, you know, and everybody, when they're talking to me about it, I say the same thing because they really are. But
I just tell people, look up in the sky. When you see no more chemtrails, and you don't see any for a long time, and it doesn't look like they're coming back, then we'll see. Then we'll know some positive change has occurred.
And I'm hoping to see some. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of good. You know, I hate to be negative all the time because really there is a lot of good about our planet today. I mean, we're curing diseases we never thought cured. Cancer used to kill people by the droves. I mean, something like 80% of cancers are curable now, especially if caught in stage 1 or 2. You know, so there's a lot of pluses that have been going on the planet, but there does seem to be this overall hanging sense of doom or destruction or not positive change. I don't know what it is. I don't really know how to label it, but I do see this when I'm talking to people on a regular basis, you know, because no one can understand why the planet's at its best, most significant part of its history, but in the 6 billion of us feel lost. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
You know, so are you the most advanced culture to ever live? You're curing things, you're inventing things, you're changing the world, getting ready to get into the universe, but yet have 6 billion depressed people on the planet. The two don't even make sense. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'm waiting to see a change. I'm hoping 2012 is something. Personally, I don't think it's going to be anything, but, you know, I've lived through, I'm 46 now, so I've lived through like 10 or 15 ends of the world.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of skeptical when it comes to the end of the world.
Well, I still believe this. I still believe that that consciousness is a field, and as more people become, you know, have that greater and greater expanded awareness, that consciousness field reaches out and touches all the people around them, and then reaches out and touches more people and more and more. And we could have a cascade effect at some point where everybody's consciousness expands very rapidly, and we may be moving towards that in 2012.
It'd be nice. I mean, because, you know, we know there's a shared consciousness because of information that are retrieved without learning the information. So we know the shared consciousness exists. But I guess to date, there hasn't been anybody that's been able to cross, I guess, like a Jesus Christ, for lack of a better thing. Maybe in his day he was able to cross the consciousness barrier, and that might have been why there was such a significant change then. But in today's society, so far, there's not been anybody that's been able to trigger this yet. And maybe it's going to need to be more than one. You know, maybe it's going to need to be several.
Yeah, it could be.
You know, or maybe somewhere along the lines the aliens will show themselves enough to trigger it. You know, they don't have to have full disclosure. I mean, I guess it has to be borderline full disclosure. Maybe if the Russians or the Brits or somebody came out with a disclosure.
Well, more and more countries are releasing their classified files.
I don't know why the U.S. won't. I guess because we got too many. But, you know, some of our allies have, some of our enemies have. But there's a lot of information out there today. And,
well, the military-industrial complex has a lot to lose if this comes out openly.
Well, they do, because we don't know what
class action lawsuits, for one.
Yeah, well, yeah. We've talked about that. Stephen asked me that one day on a radio show. He said, well, why do you think there won't be disclosure? I said, well, I know 13,000 contactees that are going to sue the very next day.
Yeah.
I said, first thing they're going to do is sue the federal government for letting aliens abduct them out of their homes and their children. I said, you're going to end up with millions of lawsuits. Millions.
Yeah.
I said, the government can't afford that, and they can't admit that they knew about it, because if they admit they knew about it, then they're liable.
Yeah.
You know, that could actually be the foundation for a revolution in this country.
Yeah, it's really a problem.
But
it still needs to be confronted. Just because it's big and ugly doesn't mean that we can't turn away from it.
Oh, I agree. Well, I'm hoping what the government will do is save face and say, okay, yeah, the planet's being visited, but we really don't know what the hell they're doing here. They're way more advanced than we are, and there's nothing we can really do about it, because then it gives them an out. It lets them say, okay, the planet is being visited, but there's nothing we can do about alien abductions. We didn't even know these were going on except for rumors and hearsays. And now you and I know that that's not true, but it's enough of the general population to accept it. And then after that, you can bring the contactees in and let them, you know, make the general population understand that there was way more going on.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. Who knows?
Well, in my small way, I hope with my column at the Denver Examiner to start building some bridges in Terran human consciousness towards contact.
Well, that's a good thing, because you never know which one of us is going to be the one that sets the person off that changes everything. So, you know, I want you to keep the hard work up. You know, don't let them get to you. Don't let them make you crazy.
No.
Anytime you feel a need to rant, just contact me for the shows. No, really, because actually I'm monopolized most of your time tonight, so... always, and don't ever have to stand on formalities with me. You know, I tell all the guests, especially the contactees. Now, I got to be honest, I'm a little ruder to the non-contactees than I am to the contactees.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just, you know, I think as experiencers we get a bum rap. I think that we're not taken serious enough in the field. I don't think we're treated correctly in the field. It's like what I was saying about the Denver conference with no experiencers being there. Come on, this is MUFON.
Yeah.
You know, this is supposed to be the Mutual UFO Organization. They should have a contactee speaking at their conference. And there definitely should be a female researcher speaking at the conference. Let's be honest about this. This isn't 1920. This is 2009.
Well, speaking of conferences, I am going to be speaking this coming September 11th through 13th at the 2009 Paranormal Symposium in Angel Fire, New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico. I was wondering where that was. Angel Fire?
Yeah.
Where the hell is that at?
Yeah.
I thought I'd been all over New Mexico. Where is that?
Angel Fire, it's near Taos.
Okay, I think I might know where that's at.
And,
well, half of New Mexico is just open desert.
yeah. But it's beautiful desert.
It is. I've been down to Roswell a few times, and I've driven all through the high desert when going out to visit people or going out to Laughlin or Vegas or something, and I thought it was just beautiful down there.
Yeah.
Texas bites, but guys, don't email me, okay? You know I got a lot of friends in Texas. I'm from Louisiana, so I got a lot of friends in Texas. But y'all have the worst state to drive across out of any state in the entire union. First, it takes a whole day to drive across this, and the northern part of Texas is ugly, okay? It's ugly, y'all. The southern part of Texas is not so bad. The northern part of Texas is ugly.
Yeah.
And it's boring, ugly ride, okay? Yeah, I know I'm going to get all kinds of emails because I was picking on Texas. Hey, look, y'all the ones that said you wanted to succeed from the union, not me. So, chill out. You got to stay on them. You got to stay on them. But anyway, I mean, it's been great having you on. So, Angel Fire, it's a paranormal conference? I mean, is it?
Yeah, 2009 Paranormal Symposium at Angel Fire, September 11th through 13th, 2009.
I'm going to have to look that up.
And it's, the website for that is www.aspefiles.org.
I'll have to check it out. I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it might be a relatively new one. I'm not sure. I hadn't heard of it too much either, but they're doing it, and they've got quite a number of great world-known speakers.
Well, New Mexico's becoming a little conference mecca over there. So I mean, they got 3 of them going on in Roswell in 2 months. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, I may be in Roswell this year. I won't be speaking. I'll be working press. And, I talked to some friends of ours at the museum the other day. Peter Robbins I just talked to about what's going on at the festival. As far as the Ancient of Days conference, guys, look, personal opinion, stay away from it, okay? It's how can I say this politely? It's religious BS. That's the only way I can say it. It's first thing is it's sponsored by CE4 and the Alien Resistance Movement, of course, who all think that all alien contactees are being demonically possessed and all extraterrestrials or fallen angels. So if that's what y'all are into, please attend the conference. But I personally, no, guys, I'm sorry. I'm looking for legitimate research, not propaganda BS. But, so y'all got those conferences. So what do you think, 6 months, a year for the book, 2 years? Look, I know...
no, I'm going to try to have a first draft done in 4 to 5 months.
Okay. Well,
from there, I think it'll be a hop, skip, and jump to publishing.
I figure by the time I actually get a book written, I'll have been 10, 12 years. I've talked to many, many people in the field, and I've even got some people that are going to be helping with me, like one of my D.C. state director and or my D.C. regional director, and a friend of mine, Karen Dolan, have both offered to help me with these books, and I'm going to take them up on them because I can talk all day long, but I am not a writer. I'm not going to lie about it. I wanted to ask you one other thing. Articles like that one you've got them posted. Do you mind if they post them to the website? We're putting up a MillLab page, a new MillLab page.
Yeah.
And Melinda Leslie's new article is going to be up there. Katarina Wilson's 2 new articles are going to be up there. And I've seen yours. Actually, I like both of them, but the one we were just talking about, the security,
the human cost of national security.
I think that would really fit in to that quite well. I think it would really be good. Too, we got new shows coming on. You might want to check them out. Angela Joyner has started. She's going to be on the Paranormal Radio Network starting May 15th. She'll be doing the late night segment on Friday nights, 10 to 12. Should be interesting. And then Whisper Radio from 1600 KMMX, I believe, out of Virginia, will be joining us starting the 18th. There's 2 new shows we added, and both of them are excellent paranormal shows. Well, I think Angela's going to be doing variety, if I'm correct in what she told me. Whisper Radio does paranormal stuff, and they got a nice size audience. And you been on Coast yet?
Nope, I haven't. Not yet.
Yeah, everybody who's listening, y'all need to do a write in the Coast. Tell her to put her, because you know what, Coast is like every other radio show. Actually, if you probably write them yourself, they will probably invite you on. Y'all did not hear that from me, by the way. Okay, I'm not supposed to give the secrets away. Well, no. I mean, the thing about it is they're like everybody else. They've got 7 nights a week, 4 hours a night of airtime to fill. And I think what happens is most people get scared or nervous to write to them, so they never get an opportunity. Because what happens is there's a lot of data on the internet to cover. So they're going to either be going by people that are sending them stuff, or people that's writing in. Because if they're going out looking out for guests, then nobody's ever going to get on their show because there's just too much to keep tabs on. But usually, if you write into them, they're usually takes them a couple of days to get back to you, but they're usually pretty responsive, and it's a lot of fun to do this show. They got a lot of energy going on there. To the person who just asked me what the donation thing was on the Paranormal Radio site, that is to keep the station ad-free. There's 2 new pieces of equipment I want to buy, and if I buy them out of pocket, guys, I'm going to put ads on the station to pay for them. So I'm going to give everybody a couple of months that wants to donate. It's only a couple of grand that we need, and if it comes up, then we'll keep the station ad-free. If not, and I got to buy them myself, yes, guys, I'm going to put ads on there, and y'all going to have to listen to ads every 30 minutes like everybody else does. So.
Well, if you had all those listeners out there, each send you $5, I think you'd have more than enough opportunity.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We don't even really need that much. It's just 2 little boxes I want to buy. It's probably, I think one of them is like $1,400, and I think the other one's like $1,800. And so it's not even outrageously expensive toys, but it will allow for a little bit more interactivity on the station itself and a little bit better audio quality, and which we got good audio quality now, but any improvement is a plus. So, but Niara, I want to say thanks for being on. You've been great. Oh, wait, one more thing. Niara Isley, but you're changing the name, right?
Yeah, I'm changing my name.
I almost forgot that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for remembering, because we got to get that out there.
Yeah, no, tell me.
Yeah, I'm going to, I did a meditation. I call it the first most New Age crazy thing I ever did. But I did a meditation for my star name. I was born the 11th month, 11th day at 11 a.m.
Damn.
And so there was a Solara 1111 opening the gateway ceremony back, I think, in 1991. And I did a meditation for my star name, and Niara was the star name I got. And so I made it a legal change, and I kept Isley for quite a long time. But now I'm going to be letting the Isley go in the next year or so, and just going with Niara Terela.
Terela, so Niara Terela.
Niara Terela.
Niara Terela. You just trying to make me crazy, aren't you? I can just see that.
Most guys, I just tell them, if you can't get Niara, just remember Niagara Falls. I'll answer to Niagara.
The Niara, I'll get set in my head. It'll get stay. The new last name, that's going to take a little more work. But well, I just want to make sure because like when I'm out, a lot of times I'm talking to different ufologists, and like when Melinda Leslie introduced me to the rehab versus the MILAB thing.
Yeah.
So every time I'm out now, I'm explaining to people what the rehab means versus MILAB, and then I tell her, of course, who it comes from. Same thing when I'm out talking. Well, if your name comes up in conversation, I want to be able to give them the right name, so they can go out and find you and understand who I'm talking about. Because if all of a sudden you take Isley away and they're like, well, who the hell is Joe talking to?
Yeah.
But anyway, I know we've gone over a little bit. But again, Niara, I want to tell you thanks for being on. You were a great guest. I had a great time.
Thank you. Me too.
Hope to talk to you in the near future. Ladies and gentlemen, any parting words before we go?
No, just don't let fear rule your life. Get out there and live it, and know that you're going to be okay no matter what.
Yep. And that's good advice for anybody, even if you're not a contactee, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank all the listening audience for tuning in tonight. Again, I want to thank Niara for being on the show because she was great tonight. Guys and girls, a lot going on to keep up with. I know a lot of y'all have been keeping up with the new MILAB stuff and the Betty and Barney Hill stuff and some of the other stuff the organization is working on. That stuff that'll be going back and forth here and there between different directors. Also looking forward to doing a joint contactee show in the near future. So as soon as I know when we're going to post it, I'll let y'all know and we'll let the audience be informed. But ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to UFO Undercover. Until next week, have some fun, smile, enjoy y'all's life. See y'all next Wednesday.
Okay.
And we are...